2013 is the 60th anniversary of the Corvette, America's first sports car. There have been numerous changes to the look and feel of the Corvette through the years. One of the best places to see many of the different models and unique memorabilia is the National Corvette Museum in Bowling Green, Kentucky.
The Bluegrass State can proudly proclaim that it is the only place in the world where the Corvette is made. The sports car has been rolling off the assembly line at the GM plant in Bowling Green since 1981. The addition of the National Corvette Museum in 1994 has made the area a top destination for anyone who is interested in the iconic sports car.
You don't ever have to have owned or even ridden in a Corvette to be excited by one. There's something about the look and the feel of it. We've got a sitter car here, and everybody wants to sit in it and feel like what it feels like to actually drive one.
The National Corvette Museum displays more than 80 cars from various model years. Its mission is to help preserve the Corvette's past, present, and future. Corvettes from the early years are featured in locations to match the time period, including a barber shop and an old service station. The museum frequently changes its collection in order to feature different cars.
Most of the cars that we have on loan at the museum, or we have on display at the museum, are on loan from private owners. And we try to have them here no shorter than 6 months or longer than 18 months because we want to continue to refreshen our displays.
The National Corvette Restorers Society, a group committed to preserving the car in its original condition, came up with the idea to build a library and archives in the late 1980s. That idea took off when owner Ray Quinlan said if a museum were built, he would donate his 1953 Corvette. Officials in Bowling Green, Kentucky worked hard to bring the museum to their area and picked a location across from the GM assembly plant. The museum officially opened its doors with a huge celebration in 1994. Corvette clubs from around the country have played a major role in the museum's success. Museum officials say there is something special about this group of people.
Well, being a Corvette owner or a Corvette lover is so much more than just the car. Now, certainly the car is a key part, and with its unique design and for the entire history of Corvette, the 60 years, the design has been kept such that the American public, well, the world, actually immediately recognizes the car as a Corvette.
A large portion of the museum is dedicated to the car's history. The concept for the Corvette was developed in the early 1950s, at a time when sports cars were only made overseas.
During World War II, our soldiers went overseas to Europe and they discovered the Ferraris, the Porsches, and they loved that speed. And boys haven't changed any, they still like that speed. But when they came home, there really wasn't anything for them at that time like that. And actually it was one of the generals that went to one of the heads of GM and said, or Chevrolet, and said, we need our own American sports car.
It didn't take long for the idea to develop into a prototype. Before long, workers in Flint, Michigan began building 300 of the 1953 models by hand.
One of the interesting things about this car, it only took 6 months to go from the auto show, the concept car, to production, which was extremely quick.
In 1954, production moved from Michigan to an assembly line in St. Louis, Missouri. The Corvette was built in St. Louis until 1981. Since then, Bowling Green, Kentucky is the only place in the world where the car is built. From the beginning, owning a Corvette was a status symbol, as portrayed in this video at the museum.
There's always been something about the Corvette among enthusiasts that, even going back to the first 1953s they sold, those first 300, that Chevrolet in their wisdom placed those with people who were movers and shakers. They were movie stars. They were people who were looked up to by Americans at the time. And the Corvette has been a dream to so many people. The Chevrolet Corvette is a sports car that has captured the essence of America's love affair with the open road.
All of the 1953 Corvettes were polo white with a red interior. A brand new one cost a little under $3,500. As an interesting point of comparison, a new television set cost $1,200 that same year. Some critics of the early Corvettes thought that the car could be made to go faster. A Belgian racer named Zora Arcus-Duntov felt so strongly about this that he reached out to the company to offer his own suggestions.
Zora Arcus-Duntov was a race car driver, and he recognized the potential in the Corvette. And he's the one that wrote a letter to General Motors and told them what could be done to make this car go faster. And sure enough, it did. It began racing and winning those races, and Zora oversaw that for several years and made it the success that it is today.
Duntov's initial criticism turned into a new job with GM. He is credited with transforming the Corvette into one of the most respected sports cars in the world. There is a section of the museum dedicated to Duntov and his wife that explains the significance of his contributions.
Really, some of the features from the early cars, there was low horsepower. It was supposed to be a sports car, but it started out as a six-cylinder. Didn't really hit its stride until 1955 when it became a V8.
The Corvette continued to make major strides in the 1960s when some of the most memorable models were introduced, including the Stingray.
Later on in 1963, big changes happened. The Stingray came around, the split window coupe, the big blocks. I mean, those are huge milestones for Corvette. The mid-60s, 63 to 67s are huge, big key years for Corvette. A lot of milestones, a lot of achievements were made, not only in regular production, but in racing.
Aside from car enthusiasts and Corvette owners, the museum is popular with tour groups and school children. Museum officials take pride in the fact that there is something at the museum that every visitor can enjoy. The Sky Dome is a special area of the museum. It pays tribute to the many individuals who have made significant contributions over the years. It also houses the only 1983 Corvette in the world. The 1983 model had to be scrapped late in the production schedule due to design problems. Some of the people who built the car did not want to see their work disappear forever.
Now, according to employees, what happened was they didn't like the idea that there wouldn't be a Corvette from that year. There were 43 of them that were built, and when GM came to crush those particular models, there were only 42, and nobody knew what had happened to the last one. The employees, fearing that this was part of the history of this car that they were so proud of, had taken it, put it under a tarp, let the weeds grow over, and just didn't mention it.
A new plant manager eventually found the missing car and reported it to GM. The company told the workers they could keep the car if it was so important to them. The owners then decided to turn it over to the museum. The museum is a great source of pride for the Bowling Green community and for the state of Kentucky. Every year, visitors come from all 50 states and nearly 60 different countries.
No other car facilitates such a feeling of camaraderie, of family, also competition and working together, the giving back to community, the activities they do as a group.
As the Corvette turns 60 this year, there is plenty of excitement in Bowling Green. The GM plant is gearing up for production of the 7th generation of the Corvette, the 2014 Corvette Stingray. The museum also plans to build a motorsports park to accommodate races and other special events. Whether you remember the early Corvettes of the 1950s and 1960s or enjoy the newer models, it is clear that the iconic American sports car will continue to generate excitement for many years to come.